Welcome to the Midterm Finger Puppet Management presentation brought to you by Team Manageable by Alex McGathy, Regina Yost, Jarek Johnston, Joseph Pereira, and Khalees Johnson.
Our show has three very distinct purposes. Firstly, we want to explore good management and see what that looks like. This will also allow us to see what bad management looks like. At the end of the series, we hope our viewers can compare the two and really see the difference good management can make. We also wish to explore hard decisions in the workplace, which is one of the most prominent themes throughout our show. Finally, we wish to explore how certain decisions can affect a career. Marjorie Davis is the manager of the sales department at a small telecommunications company called Tampa Communications. She has worked there for 10 years and started off as a secretary, working her way up. In that time, she's become very close with her boss, the owner and CEO of the company, Clark Campbell. She considers Clark to be a dear friend and a mentor. Recently, Margie's been trying to sell a new type of wall cable to their customers. This cable is notably more expensive, but testing has shown that it lasts longer and provides less static and more call clarity. Marjorie has done a great job at selling this new cable and is very proud of her accomplishments. One day, Marjorie is speaking to one of their clients when she is required to pull up their invoice. She sees that they were charged for the new, more expensive cable, but later when she pulls up the order Tampa Communications placed for the cable to see when it will arrive so they can install it, she sees the old, less expensive cable has been ordered for the job. Confused, Marjorie believes that there must have been a mistake. She looks into other companies that have ordered the new cable and sees the same thing. Marjorie knows that Clark is the only one in the company with access to change such records. She does not know if she should confront him, however, as he is her boss and friend and does not want to accuse him of charging their clients for the new cable and installing the old cable in order to pocket the difference. On the other hand, she does not want her clients and employees to be hurt and duped by his scheming. Marjorie must decide between her career, Clark's trust, and the integrity of the company. Can she protect all three? We wish to have a meaningful impact on our viewers. We want them to consider difficult situations they may be having in the workplace and to truly explore all the different avenues they could take. We want our viewers to think outside of the box and wish to challenge them to do what is right, while showing that there is not always a definitive answer for what is right.
The target market for our show is working young professionals who can relate to our show and understand our use of management and business concepts. In our episodes, we portray real-world business dilemmas and issues that real-world workers deal with daily. The market of possible viewers and people interested in our show is endless. Everyone who has had experience working in any type of environment can relate to issues and decision-making in the workplace. Our viewers may even learn a thing or two by our use of management and business concepts.
Characters. There will be 5 characters we will be talking about throughout the show. Marjorie, Clark, Nick, Carl, and Joshua. Marjorie Davis. Marjorie is a hard-working woman in her early 30s. She has dedicated her entire life to the company so she can have the career of her dreams. She is loyal to her company and spent countless hours staying late to get the job done. With relatively few friends, she is very close to Clark, the CEO. Clark Campbell. Clark is a very successful man. At 50 years old, Clark is the CEO and owner of Tampa Communications. He is very keen when it comes to making money. He started the business when he was young and took over it entirely when his business partner betrayed him. Besides being good friends with Marjorie, he is managing trust issues. Nick Bastian. Fresh out of college, Nick was able to land a job with the company. Now, 6 months later, he is the head accountant. He is reliable and willing to help anybody with questions. Nick is still learning how to handle managing people under him and frequently goes to Marjorie for advice. Carl Jones. As the head of the IT department, Carl has been with the company for 6 years. He is not very sociable, although does not mind light conversation. He has built a close bond with Clark and keeps him informed of the important things going on in the office. Every day, he gives Clark a report of the events and any employee misbehavior. Joshua Mooney. Joshua is the manager of installations and has been with the company for 5 years now. He is an extreme introvert who has a knack for finding ways to boost efficiency. He doesn't care for people too much, although Marjorie he will tolerate. He does not have very good people skills and often has trouble identifying social cues. Joshua lives with Carl, who is also his best friend.
Now let us share with you a more in-depth plan for each episode.
Episode 1 will revolve around the theme of ethical decision making. This general introduction episode will introduce the viewers to the main characters. Marjorie, who's the main character in our series, will be walking into Tampa Communication and is greeted by her co-workers. After giving her team a quick pep talk, Marjorie walks into Clark's office, who we learn is the CEO and owner of Tampa Communications. Marjorie updates Clark on her sales team's success in selling a new, more expensive cable to their customers. This new cable has a higher call quality and less calls dropped. Later that day, Marjorie finds out that someone has been letting customers believe that they were receiving the newer, more expensive cables, while in the meantime, they were being installed with the older, cheaper cables. The final scene shows Marjorie wondering if Clark could be involved in this.
Management concepts involved in Episode 1. Episode 1 leaves Marjorie in a position where she must consider managerial ethics. Chapter 2 defines managerial ethics as the study of morality and standards of business conduct. The actions of Clark, the CEO, are clearly an unethical business practice. Marjorie is placed in an ethical dilemma. Marjorie could confront her boss about his unethical business practices or let his actions continue for the short-term financial gain of the company. Choosing to let this issue slide and choose short-term financial gain over the ethical decision to stop this practice immediately would be an ethical lapse for Marjorie. In this situation, if Marjorie applied ethical decision-making, she would confront Clark and let him know that his business practices are unethical and could lead to major problems for Tampa Communication.
Episode 2 revolves around the theme of integration. Marjorie's recent suspicions have brought her to question Clark's actions. However, she does not want to approach him about this because of their friendship. Nick, who is also one of her friends, happens to be the head of the accounting department. Before lunch, Marjorie makes a short trip into Nick's office to ask for information about the cables they have been selling. Nick informs her that he cannot share the financial information with any other department. Understanding, she explains the reason for her questions, and Nick tells her that he's also noticed some issues and will begin to look into it.
Management concepts involved in Episode 2. Episode 2 shows both Tampa Communications' use of integration and their lack of integration. The employees in the episode are friends and integrate in a personal sense. Nick explains to Marjorie that he cannot share financial information to her as she is part of another department. There is a lack of integration between these two departments at Tampa Communication. This company is an example of the use of centralized organization. Clark, the CEO, is making the decisions to provide new customers with lower quality cable than they believe that they are receiving. Nick, the head of accounting, has noticed irregularities in invoices and has not acted upon these issues. Clearly, the decisions are made at the top, signaling a centralized organizational structure.
Episode 3 revolves around the theme of motivation. Marjorie, who just had her discussion with Nick, is heading off to lunch. She walks into the break room and sees Joshua sitting alone eating lunch. Joshua, who we are introduced to as the operations manager and the person who's in charge of all the installations of the new cables. She decides to eat with Joshua to discuss the installations to see if she can find any more information about the situation. Within their conversation, Joshua replies that there hasn't been a lot of orders for the new cables, and with little they have had, the installation has been going smoothly. Marjorie quickly finishes her lunch, and with this new information in hand, she hurries to finish her lunch and return to her office.
Management concepts involved in Episode 3. Episode 3 shows that Tampa Communications uses task differentiations. Joshua's title is Operations Manager and is in charge of the company's installations processes. Our episodes have displayed that Tampa Communications has a vast amount of departments and designations for employees. They have an organizational structure, and there are signs of formalization by the employees knowing what their job is. who they report to, and what information they cannot share.
Episode 4 revolves around the theme of the basic communication model. Marjorie, just having hurried back to her office, sits down to begin working when her phone rings. She reluctantly picks up the phone to find it's Nick from the accounting department with the information she asked about. She greets Nick and asks what he's been able to find out. Nick informs her that there's definitely been some changes in the accounts that he did not make, but all the new material was ordered. Marjorie thanks Nick for the information and says she'll keep it in the strictest confidence. She heads down to the installation department to see if she can locate any more information about the purchase orders.
Management concepts involved in Episode 4. Episode 4 uses the basic model of communication, with Marjorie and Nick communicating, relaying, and encoding messages. Marjorie decodes the information provided to her by Nick to attempt to do her own detective work on the issue at hand with Clark, the CEO. Marjorie continues to communicate and encode messages and information by heading to the installation department to find further information. Marjorie and others in the episode use various methods of communicating and deciphering the messages communicated. This episode also displays the organizational structure of Tampa Communications by portraying different sectors and departments of the company.
Episode 5 focuses on wrapping up the overall story of the show. We start with Marjorie confronting Clark about the situation she's uncovered. Clark ends up admitting and tells her that he's aware of it and that he was the one orchestrating it. We learn that at first it was a clerical error, but then to hide the company's financial situation, he continued to do it for every client. He and Marjorie come to an agreement that they will refund or replace all the people who were duped, and together they will work to restore the company on solid financial footing. We end 10 years later to see Marjorie is running the company and that it is now successful and continues to grow.
Management concepts involved in Episode 5. Episode 5 is a collection of all the management concepts used by Marjorie and the rest of Tampa Communications thus far. Marjorie used a variety of concepts to collect her data, send and receive messages, and ultimately make a decision. As the story concludes, we see that her use of these ethical concepts paid off as she progresses to the top of the company. This set of episodes displays Marjorie and Tampa Communication using a vast variety of management concepts. Through this presentation, the company has applied management concepts such as managerial ethics, experiencing ethical dilemmas, integration, display of Tampa Communications' organizational structure, examples of a centralized organizational structure, motivation, differentiations, formalization, encoding and decoding messages, and the basic model of communication. These concepts not only help our characters get through the dilemmas and issues at hand in Tampa Communications, but can help our group and viewers become more knowledgeable about management tactics.
This is Team Manageable, and we thank you for watching.